Y'all ready? See some of this. Tell y'all standing around for me. All right, let's go. Welcome back to the shop. Finally. Long overdue. Just goes to show you how far behind I am, but most of this video is already filmed. I just got to do this intro here and get this thing up. Eric, thank you for letting me do this saw. Thank you for letting me go absolutely mental on it, experiment with it, and having some trust in me, because this saw, it has some pretty crazy sentimental value. I'll let Eric tell the story on this, but I'm going to go ahead and say this. I'll probably title the video this. This is the craziest 500i in the world. Honest to God. If you got one crazier than this, the whole backstory, everything that was done to it, bravo. So, what makes it so crazy? Well, it's not just powder coat and dye, a couple stickers, some polished metal. It started like this. So, basically everything was replaced. Put a 3/4 wrap handle on it, the bigger clutch cover, 8-pin sprocket, max flow, custom everything, custom intake, the dye, custom bark box, custom felling dogs, custom intake, custom skid plate, custom kickstand. What else we got? Custom decomp plug. It's got a decomp plug, but then I made a plug for the hole. Never mind. We got a custom badge. We got some crazy porting and machining. It is a hybrid. This is the first 660 hybrid 500i that I've done, and this thing is a ripper. Let's just see how it runs. It gets with it. Those are some big cuts. Some of that wood it's frozen, and if you're not familiar with cutting frozen wood, it's like cutting frozen wood. I don't know how else to say it. It's frozen. And it's not smoke coming off the bar. It's not that the bar is not oiling. That's ice. It's ice, god damn it. Ice. But yeah, this thing really gets with it. Oh, did I mention it's got a European ECU in it? Some people will say that doesn't make a difference. I beg to differ. I got two saws, this one and my personal one, run the Euro ECU, and I think it makes a difference. But it's got a really crazy backstory behind it, and there's just so much to talk about. Now, the fact that it was the first hybrid that I knew of that anybody pulled off, I think Jack Beeler from Hot Sauce 101, I think he might have been doing a hybrid, but he never really said much about it. I don't watch really many people's videos. I got a lot of respect for Jack. Sorry, bugs, I'm not going crazy, but he, as far as I know, he never had let the cat out of the bag as to what he was doing, but I can tell his have a little different sound to him. But the fact that it started off like as a saw just like this, literally everything was replaced, like everything, and it's all about the little things on this saw. So let's get you up here. We'll show you what I all got going on with it, and this is pretty much all video that has been shot before, so might not make a lot of sense, but I really want to get this up here. I really want to get this thing back to Eric, and it's been a blast, dude. Thank you for letting me do it. Glad we become friends, and it's kind of a crazy story behind this thing. So, well, let's go through it. So there's a lot of stuff on here that a lot of you guys probably didn't notice, but it's all about the fine details, huh? The little stuff. So obviously we got powder coat, we got polished metal. So there's a lot more to doing these parts than people probably think. So first off, you got to get the factory powder coat off. Sandblasting cabinet, paint stripper, whatever the hell you can use to get it off. It's kind of a pain, but I'll get it off like that. I'll kind of sand it down, and then I'll tape off the parts that I don't want to have powder coat on them. I have this high temp paint tape, basically. It's like painter's tape, but it's high temp, and I got some tricks to that, but other than that, it's one of the keys is having really good powder. I got just a cheap setup, but along with that, I pre-bake the parts. So I bake the parts for like an hour and let them cool before I powder coat them. It gets any oil and chemicals or anything that would be in there, it gets that out. And there you go. When they're done with this good powder and pre-baking the parts and doing all the prep work, look at that, it turned out good. I've replaced the Elasto Start. This thing's got some serious compression. I like this handle on here. Eventually I want to make an Elasto Start style handle with something like this, or get like CNC billet aluminum handles. That'd be pretty sweet. But this saw, again, has got some use, so it's holding up really well. And again, the plastics are dyed. How many times I gotta say this? If I hear these haters say one more time that, oh, he just spray paints his saws. In fact, here, one sec. Let me show you something. There we go. Dyed plastic, not spray paint. Wire brush. Any questions? Not spray paint. Dye. Alright, a little bit extreme, but at least we got that straightened out. So again, we got dyed plastics. This is a Max Flow, and I also swapped over that rubber flap or guard, whatever the hell you want to call it, deflector, from one of the stock covers. It's got that black rubber guard on there. Otherwise, you can see the foam and the filter through the top there, and also in the vents. So I powder coated some metal screen. That's right, powder coated metal screen. How's that for attention to detail? And I like it. That way you can't sit there, you can't see the foam through the vents, and the foam's gonna stick in it. But I will. I don't want that thing to tip over. But I also dyed the white piece down here. I run 2 foam washers, sponge washers, whatever you want to call them. Gives it a little bit of better seal. I clipped that hood off of the intake baffle, I guess you could call this, or filter base, whatever they list that as part. Dyed the stop switch. So we got the skid plate. These, I've only seen these on eBay, and they basically come in just aluminum, orange, and black, I believe. And obviously I got the aluminum one and powder coated it. So we got the green to match. And then see that little pad down there, that black pad? What that is basically a kickstand, because any of these bigger felling dogs, and these are the West Coast 3-point dogs for the 462. The 500i and 462, they use the felling dogs for each will line up with the curve of the bar. They work, both of them work on a 500i is what I'm trying to say. And the 462 dogs are just a little bit shorter, so he doesn't need the crazy long spikes. And with that, any of the big dogs are going to kind of make the saw sit a little bit crooked, so that's why I got that kickstand on there so it sits level. What else we got going on? We got the bark box, modified bark box, so it's basically a dual port bark box. It sounds really good. And dyed the roller catch. There's just a lot going on here, and might have already talked about that, but got a machined piece of steel for the decomp plug. This thing's got some serious compression. Actually, I made, or am making, one of these custom ratcheting scrunches. This one's mine. You can't have this one. And I really like these. These things are so nice. It drives me nuts to not have one. And so I got the holder, and I'll be getting that done probably next year, next decade, who knows. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward other than that. I mean, the build is, like I said, it's a hybrid. It's the first hybrid that really ran good. One thing I'll say about this saw, besides all the cosmetic stuff, obviously it is ported, and it's a hybrid. It's the 660 piston, and it's the first 660 piston hybrid 500 that I did that ran really good. And it was not powder coated green in a lot of the videos, but some of them you've seen before, and it's got a different sound to them. There's two of them now. My personal 500i is a hybrid now, and this one, and the 660 piston is windowed, and there's kind of a lot to it, but a little bit of a complicated build. I didn't like the 500i piston. Now with the Wiseco, I'm really liking that Wiseco. I'm thinking that's the way to go on these 500s. And I tell you what, it didn't have the green powder coat, but you can hear a different sound when this thing is running. And here is the first time that I had it out that I really realized, like, oh yeah, I'm on to something here. This thing is nuts. So this is cut in maple, and I mean, just listen to this thing. Yeah, that thing is just, it's got a different sound to it. It winds out so fast. It's got amazing throttle response, even better than a standard ported 500i. And the reason that I say this is the craziest 500i in the world is not just the powder coat, not just the die, not just the performance, but this saw has some serious sentimental value. And I'm no joke, guys. I'm being dead serious here. I am honored to do this thing. So this is a pretty crazy story. I'll warn you, but I'm gonna let Eric tell you why this saw is so special.
So long before chainsaws, I'd actually met Gary through the ski industry. He was running a local ski shop, backcountry specific one, and they'd done a pro night for some of the ski patrols in the area, and he'd reached out to me about getting our patrol in to participate and getting hooked up with these discounts, because it's generally a pretty low paid job and we rely very heavily on our equipment. One of the funniest things, probably the best Gary story to start off a friendship in his true manner. That night, all of us dirtbag ski patrollers are standing around. It's, late fall, snow starting to fly. We're drinking beers and eating pizza and ordering gear and talking to everyone. And this couple walks in, and they were dressed head to toe in fur and designer clothing. And yeah, they had no problem strolling right in and standing with us. And so Gary went over and talked to him and asked what they were up to. And they were ski instructors for the local mountain who taught maybe 1 or 2 days a week, maybe 1 or 2 times a season, I don't even know. But they were so well off that ski instructing was literally just their hobby. And based on the private airplane pilot's hat that the guy was wearing when he walked in, you could kind of tell that they vacationed and used ski instructing as an excuse to stay busy. And so, you know, they were like, we're instructors, we want discounts. And Gary pretty much told them, yeah, you probably have more money than all of the ski patrollers in this room combined. This is for the people who are out there not making a lot of money and working really hard and who actually deserve these discounts. And he literally threw them out of the pro night that night, and it was awesome. Pretty much kicked them out to a standing ovation from all of us ski patrollers. And that's Gary in a nutshell. Fast forward a few years, you know, we've been friends and we kind of connected loosely here and there. Tried to ski a little bit together up until the summer I started working with him. He'd caught wind that I'd went out and got some chainsaw certifications. I went and got my Forest Service S212. You know, I'd taken some safety trainings. I had my own saw. I had some pretty good run time, some good trigger time, a little bit of experience. And he was starting up his own forestry company finally. He'd broken off from the ranch that he'd worked for I think about 10 years or so. And he had already started these projects cutting at a private ski resort in Evergreen, Colorado. And he was looking to pick up more work, which we ended up picking up another resort in Wyoming and another one in kind of the northern corner of Colorado as well. So he approached me and just said, hey, you know, I know you're working full-time doing the summer thing, but if you ever are looking for some gig work, I'd love to have you on my saw crew. And so any chance I'd get, if they were on site, I would try to get down there with my saw and just work with Gary and his crew. And it was pretty sweet to be working in such a niche industry that, you know, we're ski patrollers, we're all skiers, and somehow we managed to find ourselves working on developing ski areas and skiing terrain, which is something that, sure, anybody can go out with a chainsaw and make what they think looks like awesome skiing terrain. But yeah, to have that background and the fact that he was able to kind of source us all out, because we were all just a collection of mountain operations guys running saws on these private resorts, it was pretty sweet. And yeah, we kind of just, every time we'd be like, oh, you know, the work might dry up, the resort's getting close to being finished, we'd come up with another one. And yeah, so it would be, we just kind of had this list of private resorts that were calling us and getting us booked up. And yeah, it was pretty wild to be in this industry of skiing and also somehow manage to run chainsaws in it. It was like a full 365 experience. And it was pretty cool to be doing it alongside him. So a few weeks before Gary passed away, we'd been talking through the winter about my potential role coming on as his foreman with the company. So that'd be full-time work through the summer at least. I'd still ski patrol or do what I do in the winter, teach avalanche courses and things like that. And yeah, so we had sat down a few weeks before the accident and kind of hashed it out and talked about what it looked like. And he offered me the full-time summer foreman position for his new company, Outland Mountain, which was pretty incredible. You know, we spent a good summer working together. We were pretty familiar with each other as friends, but he was really willing to invest in me, just whole hog. And he had an entire plan pretty much set up and ready for me to keep my developing education and skill set. You know, he wanted to get me into some climbing and, you know, send me off with a couple of residential crews to get a little more experience that way. And so that's where the 500 comes into play. That was his kind of signing bonus for me. He said he'd buy me any saw I wanted, and the 500 had just come out. So when I told him that's the one, he didn't even hesitate. He went and actually got the first one to come into kind of our area of Colorado, which John found out the hard way when we realized it was part of the kind of faulty, I think it was ignitions or coils or something like that what the first batch had. But yeah, it was one of the first 500s in the area, and Gary had picked that up for me as a gift and as a welcome and a thank you for investing in him, an investment in me. Yeah. So yeah, 500's on the way. I naturally go on to West Coast Saw and get the Feller's suspension kit and the dogs and a bark box, and I've got those things waiting. And yeah, as ironic as it might be, I guess, the day Gary passed away, we were actually texting back and forth and just chatting about the saw. I told him I'd had these parts, and he had mentioned to me and pretty much asked me to either hang on to them for a little while or send them back. With the 500 being so new, especially over here to the U.S., warranties coming into play. This is a work saw, and he did just spend all that money on it. He was like, look, I don't need to blow this thing up and avoid any warranties with these parts. You've already got a noisy saw with all those things on it. How about we leave this one alone and make sure it stands the test of time before we go messing with it. So he was like really against modifying the saw in any way. And that was kind of one of the last conversations we had before he passed away. So the day he passed away, we were texting back and forth, and he had told me that he was heading out into the backcountry. I'm actually right behind the ski resort that I was patrolling at the time. And I was like, yeah, hey, just keep in touch. Let me know how everything's going out there. And so day rolls through, ski patrolling, don't hear anything really. And that afternoon, things start lighting up around the resort. Phone calls getting made, departments starting to panic and freak out. And I got a hold of our patrol director to find out what was going on. There was a lot of radio chatter. And it turned out that there had been an accident behind the resort involving 2 skiers. There wasn't really much more information than that. And it didn't really take but a second for me to realize, I knew who was out there without having even been said. So we had gotten the green light as a ski patrol to go out and assist in any rescue efforts with the individuals in the backcountry. I deployed myself to the outpost that they were basing out of to start the rescue. And when I had walked in to the outpost, I immediately recognized the individual who I knew was out there with Gary that day. And that pretty much just set in stone what I had already kind of figured out myself. We deployed. It was myself and another ski patroller. We were first to Gary's body. He had passed away, and it would have seemed pretty quickly in the accident. He was involved in an avalanche that swept him over a rock band out in the backcountry. We brought Gary out, which was a tremendous point of pride for me to be able to bring him home. So, Gary's brother, Craig, made sure that the 500 came back to me after everything kind of had settled down, which was really tremendous of him to keep me in mind for that. And it was awesome to have that last gift, that Gary gave me. It was an awesome reminder of just the faith that he had in me and, his willingness to invest. So naturally, I decided to call John and take the saw that, Gary had literally told me in kind of one of the last sentences we shared together. Please don't mess with this saw. Let's keep this thing intact. And I figured, John, why don't we go ahead and just throw that out the door, and let's just make this thing an awesome tribute and something super special. Something that every time I look at and hold and run, can remind me of Gary. I think one of the coolest parts of the 500 project, getting to work with John and, having become friends through this process is pretty damn rewarding. He's taken this just so far above and beyond and invested so much emotionally and, and making this thing awesome. And it's cool because I'm getting a really rip and saw out of this. But his care and the friendship that we've developed out of this is almost as cool, if not cooler. And it's the product he's delivering to me. It's pretty badass thing, just like Gary. The guy was just badass. He was my badass buddy.
Yeah, so when I got this I didn't actually know that it held such sentimental value, and I'll tell you what, I don't get nervous very often doing a build, but I wanted to really do something special with this thing, and that is just my luck. The first time I sent it back, we did a pretty rowdy but standard build with it, did the die and all that, and this was one of the early 500s, and when I sent it back, it just, actually Eric loved it. He didn't have any problems with it. He was totally happy with it, but he sent me a couple videos, and I'm like, I could hear that it just wasn't quite running right, and I told him, I'm like, you got to send this thing back. Like, it needs to be perfect. And lo and behold, this was one of the early ones, and it had ECU issues. So we swapped it out for the European ECU, which I know people say there's no difference. I think there's a difference. I really do. The only other one that I have that's a European ECU is my personal 500, because that one I had brought over, we'll say, from Greece, and they run different. I swear to God, they run different, but whatever, that's a different argument. But now it has the Euro ECU in it, different fuel pump, and it's a runner. And I really hope that this thing is everything and some that you wanted it to be. Eric, thanks for letting me do it. Really glad that we got to be buddies, and we'll get into some more trouble down the road. And although I never got to meet Gary, the guy seemed like a legit legend, and kind of sucks that he went out like that. And about not having the saw modified at all. Sorry about that, dude. Maybe if you were still around, I'd convince you that it's pretty rad, but you'd probably think, oh my God, this guy's out of his damn mind. But so does everybody else. Trying to make light of it. I don't really know what to say, but there you go. If someone's got a crazier 500 die than that, with everything that's involved, I say congratulations to that person, because I think this is the craziest 500 die on the planet. This is the raddest thing I've ever seen in my life. Really?